So good evening, everybody. My name is Grace Valenzuela. I'm the Executive Director for Communications and Family and Community Partnerships for the Portland Public Schools. So welcome to this HBCU event for one of the sessions that we have for this year for Parent University and student engagement. So tonight we have some guests on the screen. They're virtual, and then of course we have someone here also in person with us, and I'm going to introduce them to you shortly. But before that, I want to give just a little background about HBCU, and HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. They are institutions of higher education in the United States that were established before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 with the intention of primarily serving African Americans. Most of these institutions were founded during the Reconstruction era after the Civil War and are concentrated in the southern part of the United States. For a century after the abolition of American slavery in 1865, almost all colleges and universities in the southern United States prohibited all African Americans from attending as required by Jim Crow laws in the South, while institutions in other parts of the country regularly employed quotas to limit admissions of Black people. HBCUs were established to provide more opportunities to African Americans and are largely responsible for establishing and expanding the African American middle class. There are 101 HBCUs in the United States, representing 3% of the nation's colleges, including public and private institutions. They currently produce nearly 20% of all African American college graduates. Among the graduates of HBCUs are civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and our presidential candidate, current Vice President Kamala Harris. In 2023, 73% of students attending HBCUs were Pell Grant eligible, while the national average was 34%. The United Negro College Fund released its 2024 HBCU Economic Impact Report, providing data about the economic power of HBCUs. Today, they generate $16.5 billion annually in economic impact on communities across the United States, according to the report. The collective employment impact of HBCUs on their regional economies was 136,048 jobs, which totals more than the number of jobs at Dell or Intel, the 42nd and 43rd largest publicly traded American companies. While the Biden-Harris administration has invested more than $1 billion to the nation's 101 HBCUs, and philanthropic efforts increased following the 2020 murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. At our event tonight, we will ask each of our panelists to take 8 to 10 minutes to introduce themselves and answer our two major questions. What does the student experience look like at the school? And what can HBCU provide over a non-HBCU? What's the difference? So our panelists include Laina Cox, who graduated from Spelman College with a BA in Psychology and Child Development. Chanel Lewis, who is a Portland-born person in our midst and graduated from Portland High School, went to Howard with BA in Sociology with a minor in African American Studies. Isaac Welch is also a graduate from Howard with BA in journalism. And Kalynn Spriggs, who is in person with us, is the admissions counselor from Coppin State University. So after the panel talk, there will be question and answer, and we will have a microphone. We will pass around this one that I'm holding and help facilitate the Q&A. And so that we can do this virtually. And we will wrap up at 7 o'clock. So for the 5 to 8 minutes of intro, I will turn it over. Who's going to start, Colby? Is it Chanel? Okay, so Chanel Lewis, PPS alum, will start us off. Chanel, welcome.
Hey, hi y'all. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much, Grace. It's always a pleasure to see you. As Grace mentioned, I am from Portland. I matriculated through Portland Public Schools. Moved to Portland when I was 12, so I attended King Middle School for middle school, and then Portland High School, Go Bulldogs. And after high school, I made the decision to go to Howard University, which is located in Washington, D.C. What does the student experience look like? I think that is such a special experience. Coming from Maine, I was often the only kind of Black student in my classes. I experienced a lot of othering, feeling very othered in various ways. Whether it was the various moments during different classes where we're talking about issues related to the Black or African American experience, I often felt like I was looked at as an expert in certain areas and certain fields. And so it just makes it, it doesn't make for a welcoming and warm experience all the time, being looked at as the person who's supposed to know everything about everything. Going to Howard, I remember applying, and then when I got in, I was just so ecstatic. I was so excited. And then it didn't really make a lot of sense for me until I went to what they call accepted and committed students day. And that's for all the students who've been accepted into the university and have said, yes, I will attend. The moment I stepped onto campus, I have never felt more ease in my body. For the first time, I was surrounded by Black people, which was a very new and different thing for me growing up in Portland. So many different types of people from so many different types of backgrounds and experiences. And going there, matriculating there, it helped me to realize that Blackness doesn't look one way. And that might be a resounding theme you'll hear from all of us, is that the media, stories, history portrays Black people, African American people, brown-skinned people as one way, right? You see it, there are stereotypes. And when I got to Howard, I realized there's just such a diversity within us as a people. Like you can't pinpoint one thing on one person. There are regional differences. There are cultural differences. I have so much lingo and language now because I attended Howard with people who are from Louisiana, from New Orleans, from the West Coast, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from the Caribbean. And that experience for me opened my eyes to what I could be. Right. It made it more clear for me that truly I could be anything. I could do anything that I wanted to do. And I didn't have to fit a particular box in order to be that. And in terms of like, what does an HBCU provide over a non-HBCU? I will have to say that is really seeing in your administration, in your faculty, people who look like you, who understand the unique experience that it means to be a Black person, a person of color, really a Black person in the world. You don't have to explain certain things. I mean, I remember being in high school and like the conversations around my hair, and when we talk about one time a year, you know, civil rights or whatever, like feeling a sense of like y'all aren't really understanding that the history we're talking about has impacted my family, right? I don't have to have that conversation at an HBCU. I don't have to justify that I'm supposed to be here, right? And what was also very interesting to me is that I also thought that HBCUs were kind of like for Black people only. I was very surprised when I got to Howard and saw so many, like, I would say white people that I was surprised by that. I was like, wow, there are people, everyone sees this as an opportunity. And for me, like, that just demonstrates that there is an idea that when you support your community, that you are sacrificing quality. That is a lie. There's very smart people within our communities that are qualified to teach and to support the growth and journey of others. I've made friends, and please tell me if I'm running because I will talk all day about my experience. The friends that I have now, I made at Howard. They are my family. Like wherever I go, they're there for me. They're there with me. They are challenging me. The friendships that I have aren't just making me comfortable with who I am and where I am. They are challenging me to think differently, to take challenges, to do things differently. And I can't say if I would have gotten that elsewhere, but I know the level of family that I feel and kinship and community that I feel with this university and the people that I've connected with there. I could never say enough of. So I think I'm probably at time. And with that, I'll pass it to someone, if that makes sense. Colby, is that cool?
Great. Thank you, Chanel, for sharing that. Isaac, would you be willing to share next? And then we'll go on to Laina. And then I'm sure, have questions at the end for you, Chanel. So thank you so much for sharing.
Okay. All right. How you guys doing today? You guys all right? Cool. All right. All right. So yeah, I'm Isaac. HBCU alumni. Also went to Howard University. Miss Chanel by, I think, a few classes, but yeah, also made it through Howard. And I'm also a Maine native as well. I didn't go to Portland, though I wish I did. I went to Falmouth High Schools just across the way. So I'm definitely familiar with the Maine to HBCU experience. It's a very, very, very unique experience. I think that's like one thing that kind of, if you're from Maine and if you're from an environment like Maine, there's one characteristic about that I'm not going to say explicitly, but I think we all probably know what we might be talking about. But yeah, transferring from those two environments is like kind of the main thing that drew me personally to Howard. So after going to Falmouth schools, I went to Fordham University for a year for my freshman year. And that was, man, I got to run this back. Yeah, this was like in 2017. And there was a lot of stuff going on. I think like the Black Lives Matter organization was kind of first poking its head out. There was, of course, the Trump presidency and election and all that. And there was just a lot of stuff going on in, my encompassing political world that influenced my social experience at home and influenced, how I thought about being a Black person growing up in Maine and like the communities that I've been in and what that experience was like. And, I'm sure a lot of people here can relate, but a lot of those experiences and just what was going on at the time, like definitely drew me to Howard. And, you know, a lot of the draws for most of the things that Chanel mentioned. Yeah, definitely. It provides like a very vast and rich cultural experience. And it's like, it is honestly, it's something that you have to prepare yourself for when you, like I said earlier, come from an environment like Maine. Yeah, there's people from all over the entire world and from like every state and from every city. You'll be able to really like build your network as far as you want to. And it's pretty incredible. But yeah, it's definitely, in a sort of way, it's definitely very welcoming. You know, when you're in tune with the culture. But it's also like, I know for me personally, it was definitely a lot to adjust to at first. But you know, over time, you know, you kind of start seeing the beauty of the whole experience and letting it get close to you. But yeah, that aside, what HBCU can provide you as an institution, other than like the cultural experiences, definitely that network of people that you know while you're matriculating and after you graduate. There's people from all over the world, and there's also people in all sectors of whatever business or trade or profession you're trying to get into after. And that's something you can depend on, something you can count on having, you know, providing you're involved with the stuff you're doing in your program, you know, on campus, you know, keeping yourself tapped in. But, you know, if you maintain that, then that's something you'll definitely leave with. And I think another thing, this maybe also is a little less tangible, but like, yeah, that, you know, that recognition that you're a part of a rich history, like, you know, this is our history. The things that led up to the establishment of Howard University are not that long ago. And like we said before, you know, a lot of that stuff is still deeply impactful today. So, yeah, I really like what Chanel said earlier about, you know, that understanding that investing in what your community has is not you're not making a sacrifice in quality. So yeah, I mean, for me, you know, my experience is, I think, definitely unique in a lot of ways. But I think overall, like, those are definitely the things that you can expect to take away from. So yeah, it's my learning
Thank you,
track.
Isaac, for sharing. Awesome. And now Laina, and then we'll go to Kalynn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laina Cox. I am a graduate of Spelman College. I am definitely the elder on this panel, but I'm really excited to be here. I do have my bachelor's in arts and psychology and child development, and I have my master's in education from Harvard. And I named that because I feel like that is such a part of my story. The reason why I was able to go to Harvard for grad school was because of Spelman. I am not from Maine, but I did grow up in New England. I'm from Connecticut. So very similar experience of my need for Spelman after high school. I'm an educator. I've been an educator for 25 years. And I live in Washington, D.C. And one of the big parts of working with young people that I love, so why I'm excited to be on this panel today, is really being able to make sure that my students are fully exposed to all the different options, and really understanding why the HBCU experience is such, a viable option. When I think about, what the student experience looks like, whenever I talk about Spelman or just HBCUs in general, like, you don't attend an HBCU, you experience an HBCU. And so, from the moment I stepped foot on Spelman's campus, now, 25 years ago, I felt hugged and loved at all times for all 4 years that I was there. I felt cared for, I was empowered, I was challenged, and I was given the tools to live out our motto, which is a choice to change the world. We were kind of handed this responsibility that you are spending 4 years here and you're going to get your education here. And then it is our job to go out into the world and change it. And so really, live by that motto even to this day. Spelman's in Atlanta, and it is in the Atlanta University Center, known as the AUC. And one of the beautiful things about being in the Atlanta University Center is there are 6 HBCUs all within walking distance. So Spelman and Morehouse are across the street from each other. Clark Atlanta University, Morris Brown are around the corner. And then the Theological Seminary and Morehouse School of Medicine. So you just have this whole area of Black excellence that you are surrounded by and that you're, given the opportunity to really connect with. We're in the heart of Atlanta, and that is where the civil rights movement was born. So the history that lives in that space is something that I can't even put into words, and just what I was exposed to being right in Atlanta was huge. Dr. King's sister was my professor and one of my mentors. She wrote my reference letter for grad school. There were politicians that would constantly be on campus, activists, artists, movie stars, like everybody wants to step foot on HBCU campuses because they know the students that are there and what those schools are producing. And everybody wants to have, their hands in that. Corporations and medical schools, law schools, everyone is recruiting from HBCUs because they know what those schools are producing. And, one of the things about Spelman and just about being in Atlanta, like going to college, these are meant to be the best 4 years of your life. This is your first time at, independence. This is getting away from home and starting to, come into who you are. I had a blast. Like, those are the 4 years that I would take back in a heartbeat. I would leave my husband and my kids in this world, and I would go right on back to Spelman and redo it all over again if I could. Like, that is just how much a part of me Spelman is. For us, it is, there's a lot of tradition that is in our culture. We are one of 2 institutions for Black women, us and Bennett College, which is in North Carolina. And so just the traditions about how to be a Black woman and how to find your voice and how to stand 10 toes down to what you believe in and how to voice it in a way that is heard. The traditions that we lived with, those are things that I still abide by now. And, Spelman is just a really special place. We produce more Black women PhDs in STEM than any other institution. We've been named the #1 HBCU by U.S. News and World Report for 18 years in a row. My classmates are judges, are politicians, are entrepreneurs, are doctors. We are opera singers, movie stars, like you name it. Spelman has produced her. And one of the things that I love about it too is we're a college and we're smaller, all things considered when you look at class size. So a lot of times people will say like, oh, I know such and such someone that went to Spelman. If she graduated with me, more than likely, I either know her or know of her or somebody I'm connected to knows her. So just even that network and that kind of tight knit feel that we have. We are sisters. We are taught to believe in the sisterhood, the traditions of sisterhood. And then our brothers, Morehouse is across the street. There's even the tradition, the Spell House tradition of, us being connected as well. Chanel said this too, and I agree. Like, my best friends are from Spelman. Some that I met literally when we got out the car, our parents' car, when we moved in on the first day of school. That girl is my kid's, godmother. These women have been in my weddings. Our husbands are friends. I consider them family and truly my sisters. When I think about what an HBCU provides over a non-HBCU, the first thing is the space to be authentically and unapologetically yourself. And so, between age 18 and 22, those are very viable years for you to be stepping into who you are, and to be able to do that in a place where you don't have to fight against other things. It's the only 4 years in your life where you will not have to deal with racism on the level that you will have to deal with it for the rest of your life being a person of color in this country. We are, you are surrounded by people who look like you, but are not necessarily the same as you. And Chanel said this too, like, we are not a monolith. So, socioeconomically, politically, religiously, culturally, all of these different things, we, there's a class that we take at Spelman called African Diaspora and the World. And it truly is like the teaching of who we are as a people throughout the world, and who really comes to, who you will find on campuses at HBCUs. I feel like, I went in, there were aspects of me that kind of went in as like an angry Black girl, like after having been the only in so many spaces. And I truly, feel blessed to have had Spelman kind of teach me how to be in that space and still have that passion, and that fervor, but do it in a way that, would be able to push me forward in life. The other piece is around the professors. Like, the folks who teach at HBCUs are some of the most amazing professors in the world. And they really take on the responsibility of supporting young Black excellence. And so, from the conversations that they have, both formally in class or just informally, they know how important these and how significant these 4 years are. And I feel like they really, take that responsibility pretty seriously. And then the last thing I'll say, and Isaac talked about it a little bit too, is just the network. It's not just there's the Sisterhood of Spelman and my Morehouse brothers and, all of that. But just this network within an HBCU, I run a charter school network in Washington, D.C., and we have 3 campuses. And when I see resumes come across the desk, if I see that a potential teacher or principal or staff member went to an HBCU, it's my job to really help make sure that they make it to the next round. That's just the network. That's the kind of the sisterhood, brotherhood of being a part of an HBCU. We all, we might have our little tiffs and whose school is better, like the things that you naturally do, but don't let anybody who didn't go to an HBCU have anything to say about an HBCU. Then we will all bond together and jump on that person, because we take, our network and our village and that experience so seriously. So I think that there's both the kind of tangible things that HBCU can offer versus a non-HBCU. But the biggest pieces are you get 4 years for undergraduate. And those 4 years are a critical time for you to really grow in your identity and who you are as a young person of color. Why not do that in a space that is truly going to nurture and love and empower you before you go out into the world and have to deal with all of the other isms that come and that might be fighting against you as a person of color. Those 4 years at an HBCU will give you a whole different light and perspective to be able to live through the rest of your life.
Thank you so much, Laina. That was great. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kalynn. So I'm going to turn this just a little bit so you can see. And Kalynn, I think the mic's still on. Is it?
So.
Okay. Just turn it on. Yeah, there you go.
Hello,
Sure.
I'm gonna take my Coppin hat off for a second and just speak about my experience as a former HBCU student. So I was privileged enough to attend two HBCUs. I attended Morgan State University and I graduated from Coppin State University. I would say that as we've all experienced, or as you all heard earlier, HBCUs, we each offer a different field, but all honed in on us being a family. So to speak on my experience from Morgan State University, of course, it is a bigger school. So I was able to network in the sense where I met a lot of people. When we go into Coppin, Coppin is small. We only have about 2,200 students on our campus. So within Coppin, I was able to network and build bonds. So where I was able to network and build relationships as far as businesses with Coppin, I'm able to build bonds that last a lifetime. So there I'm able to be known as a person. My professors know me by my name. They know me by my face. I'm not just a number in my classroom. They know me personally. And I say that's a great takeaway for a bunch of HBCUs because you never are going to find a space where teachers, professors advocate for you on a personal level because they look like you. They've been in your shoes. Oftentimes, a lot of professors have graduated from common HBCUs or are alums of the university that they're teaching in. So they're able to give back into you in a way that you aren't going to see elsewhere. I would advocate for HBCUs every time because you feel at home. Honestly, I went to two, as I said before, and I feel at home at each of them. I go to each of their homecomings and feel like I never left because that family feel never disappears. It's there all of your years. Where you only stay on the campus for 4 years, you're a part of that family for the rest of your life. It's a lifetime commitment for that. You never feel alone or ever feel isolated. You never feel like you're just a piece of a puzzle. You feel like you're working in the puzzle. Like you are actively a part, I'm sorry. I would say the difference between an HBCU and a non-HBCU is going to be that family because these are people that you're going to talk to for the rest of your life. For me personally, from my experience, I was initiated to my sorority at Coppin State University. I still talk to those people every day. We're family, we're sisters. For my professors, I can still reach out to them if I need recommendation letters for new job ventures, new opportunities, or if I have a question about maybe venturing into a new field, I can still email a professor from 4 years ago and they'll give me a response because those relationships, those bonds were built. And I can't say that from any other school, any other non-HBCU, because I haven't been a part of that. But I can say for a fact that at HBCUs, all of them, this is what you're going to get because they advocate for you wholeheartedly. Speaking from a Coppin and put my Coppin hat back on for a second, since we are a little small is a difference with us. I would say that my experience at Coppin was more hands-on, more personal than my experience at Morgan. And that's not to bash Morgan at all because the school is wonderful. That was just my experience and what I took from it. So at Coppin, again, I met my line sisters. I now work at Coppin, so clearly I can't get enough of the university itself. It's just a family feel, and I feel like you've heard that countless times this evening, but it's so true that it's insane. You can't take that away from any HBCU, honestly. Again, because we are relatively small, our class sizes are smaller, so you'll get to know your professors personally. You'll be sitting in a class of about 12 students max majority of the time. And you're going to know when someone's missing. You're going to know if someone's not there for this exam. So you can be like, hey, what's going on? Where were you? You missed this. That's how it is. And that's how students look out for each other. Personally speaking, I am taking my master's courses at Coppin State University as we speak. And I still get that feel today. So hopefully 2-time Coppin alum in the future. But the opportunity for you at HBC was 100% there. I'm not sure. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So I haven't experienced all that you guys have experienced here. I was been around like-minded people who look like me my entire life. So I can say that in Maryland, that's what you'll get. But also you'll be exposed to other cultures. Even at Coppin, and we're small, we have other cultures there. We have people from all over the world. A great thing about Coppin for you guys is that if you opt to come to Coppin, you get in-state tuition. That's another incentive for you. We want students to be exposed to HBCUs. There's a couple schools out here that are doing that same incentive for states who are underpopulated in HBCUs. They have one or few more, they get that in-state tuition because we want you guys to experience what we have to offer. We want you guys to feel at home, to feel like you have a place that you can call your home away from home or even move to in the future. The HBCU culture, the HBCU experience is something that is unlike any other. And I would choose an HBCU every single time. Every time. It's undebatable.
And I'm gonna just turn this back over here, and if anyone has any questions, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on up. Come on up. It's a wired mic, so here. You can stand right here. And there you go.
I had a question in particular about Spelman. How are the internship opportunities like, and what are the outcomes?
Could you hear that, Laina?
I think so. You said internship?
Yeah, the internship opportunities and like what are the outcomes at Spelman?
So, I mean, there are a world of opportunities, both from, domestic exchange, international exchange. It depends on, whichever, I'm not sure what field you might be considering. But like I said, like companies and corporations and foundations and all the different types of experiences come to Spelman to recruit. So a lot of times, a lot of us did some form of, we're really pushed to do internships the summer after the summer after our junior year, heading into senior year. So a lot of us stayed in the Atlanta area and did internships in our different fields. But then some, I have a student, one of my past students is now a senior at Spelman, but she is interested in dentistry. So she has come back and done internships at Howard Dental School every summer for the past 2 summers. And so, for those students that are interested in medicine, a lot of them get internships at different medical schools around the country. Those who are interested in law, where my best friend is an attorney. She had a law internship for 2 years when we were juniors and seniors. So, and then a lot of my friends that are in finance and in business were on Wall Street and were sent to New York or Chicago to do internships during that time. And so the outcomes are jobs. Like these internships start as that, and that kind of becomes their foot in. We have a graduate of Spelman who runs a major corporation, and she wrote it into her contract that they have to hire a certain number of Spelman women every year. And so she brings in, has a full internship program, and then some of those young women are hired upon graduation. So those types of experience are, they're there, and they're really expected. We're expected to take advantage of as much as we can while we're at Spelman.
Thank you, Laina. Anyone else have a question? Could be for a specific panelist or just about HBCUs in general. I see. Yeah, come on up.
For those who had to like travel far from home, like how was it like being away from home? And like, was it road trips? Was it like travel like on the plane and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm happy to speak about that. So moving from Portland to DC, we flew, but I know that people do drive. And the one thing I will say is that while there is a different feeling being away from family and home, I didn't feel particularly homesick because I felt very cared for. I know that that's a big piece that I know parents are in the room. You may be feeling is, is my child going to be safe? Are they going to be cared for? And what I find to be very unique, a very unique experience for me, because I attended an HBCU for undergraduate school and then a non-HBCU for graduate school. And I just felt so cared for. If people didn't have places to go for the holidays, if people, I was invited to friends' places if I wasn't able to go home, or if that meant going somewhere closer than going home, right? So I had friends who lived in New Jersey, and New Jersey is a 3-hour drive versus an 8.5-hour drive to Portland. that wasn't unique. Like people did that all the time. And so while it will not replace being at home with your family, I want to reiterate the sense of community there. It's that, people, there is a genuine care, not just from your fellow peers and the fellow students, but also from your professors. There, people are asking, are you going home? What are you doing? I know that there are some professors who will open up their homes for holidays and things of that sort. And that's not unique. That happens all the time. And I will say, there are different forms of aid that exist within institutions like Howard, Spelman, Coppin, et cetera, where, if you need some support finding a way home, like people will help you find it. It's just that sort of place. And I just think that that's a very different experience. So I hope that answers some of your question.
I'll actually just add one other, because you said it, like going home with friends, those professors and deans that open up their house to you as well. And then the one other thing, I know we do this here, and I guarantee you, Howard alum do it as well. Local alum will also make sure, like we look out for students that are from out of state that are in the area. And so whether it's our chapter, might host a dinner so that students who aren't able to go home, especially, I always remember like Thanksgiving, because that one's like a quick turnaround. And sometimes if you live far, it's hard to go home for Thanksgiving, because you literally go home for Thanksgiving, you come back to school for like 1-2 weeks to take your finals, and then you're home again for like a month for Christmas or for winter break. And sometimes it's really, it's really hard to do that. I couldn't always come home for Thanksgiving. Like my parents just couldn't afford it for me to be able to do Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so I made friends that either lived in the area, or we would lean on the alumni would come through and would kind of open their houses as well, especially for Thanksgiving. So you already feel that hug of the network, that while you might not be with your family, you still have a home away from home through someone.
And Laina, if I could add on to that too, because like these institutions also attract international students from different countries and different cultures. So for some who may not celebrate or like observe Thanksgiving, there's likely a cohort of students that are like, we're here, we don't do that. We don't do that back home. And so I know that for Portland has a very diverse Black community ranging from a lot of countries across the continent. And so I just want to reiterate that there's likely someone from your culture at an HBCU, from your background at an HBCU, that may speak the language you speak at home at an HBCU, and may practice similar cultural, religious, norms, practices, rituals as you do. And that's the beauty of it, is that you're not just going to get one experience. There are so many experiences within the HBCU.
I just want to add on and say, just about like being away from home and like, being in a new city. That was something that Ms. Laina mentioned is like a really important thing, like those, as a part of those first 4 years where you get your first taste and like attempt with the independence and everything. And one thing I would say is that like, there's kind of two layers to that. Like one, you're in a new environment just as far as your school, but then also like, you're in a new city or a completely different state or something as well. And that's something to adjust to. But I mean, it's like anything else. It's a chance to explore, which is really cool. So I just would say, reflecting on my experience, like I think you kind of get introduced to the city or the new environment through what it means to be a student in that city, which can be a really cool thing. But I would also like encourage people as you guys matriculate and as you get into like later years in your school, and to also like branch out and connect with the city itself, because there's opportunities to be had there as a student representing your university in the whole ecosystem of the city. So, you know, campus life is going to be a lot of fun, but also don't be shy, like branch out, see what else is there for you.
Okay, I'm back. I had another question about like study abroad opportunities. Like, what are they like, and how are they like, and how easy is it to kind of like have access to them in college?
I'll jump in real quick. That is actually my one regret about college, about my 4 years, is that I didn't study abroad. And now, like looking back, I wish I had. I had a number of friends that did, and so if there is, you know, somewhere in particular you want to go, or somewhere that you couldn't even imagine going, but you would get the opportunity to do that. So, you know, both speaking specifically with those of us on the call right now, Howard and Spelman bring in such an international student body, and both during school, but then also where graduates go, that you do have those types of opportunities, both international, and I know Spelman had domestic, so you could also go to other schools, you know, for a semester or for a year in the States as well. So you know, those offerings are there, and they want you, you know, your professors want you to be able to experience, they want to produce these well-rounded alumni. And so, you know, one piece of advice I always give to young people is like, take full advantage of those types of opportunities, because it will just look different. Once y'all graduate and you really become adult, like adulting is hard, and it's not free, and it's expensive. And so anything you can take advantage of when you are in school, fully take advantage, you know, of those types of programs.
For Coppin in particular, our study abroad opportunities are major specific. So depending upon your program, what they have to offer, you just connect with your academic advisor and they'll make a plan to see what we have available for that semester. I wouldn't say that they are in common, but we don't have students who look into them often. So definitely network with your advisors and see what's available for your major, and honestly say where you want to go. And honestly, we can probably make it happen. Typically speaking, I know we have a lot of domestic opportunities available. We even have sister schools where you're able to take some courses. But if you're looking for international travel, definitely network with your advisors to do that.
And I'll add to that. So I know that at Howard, I'm with you, Laina. Like, I had an opportunity to do a summer abroad. So sometimes it's a semester abroad or it'd be a summer abroad, and I didn't take it. And it's one of the, I don't regret anything in my life but that. But at the time, they had several summer specific study abroad programs. One was in Egypt, there was one in Spain, there was one in South Africa. And I know that it's an opportunity that's available at Howard. And so I would say again, exactly, I'm looking for your name so I can refer to you. Exactly what Kalynn said is, you know, make sure that you are advocating for yourself and for the experience that you want. That's another thing. Like, that's just something you're going to have to do, become comfortable with, is saying, no, I want this experience. And I think that's just anywhere that you go, probably have to do some advocacy now. But, you know, if you are interested in studying abroad, seeing what opportunities there are, one, look at your department, as Kalynn said, and talk to your academic advisor. But there are also some that are term specific. So that could be a full semester abroad. It could be a summer semester abroad, or it can be a winter term semester abroad. So I would just recommend that you kind of consider what you're interested in, where you want to go, and how does that connect to your overall academic journey. You know, so for example, if you're majoring in Spanish, it may help to go to Spain, for example, for language immersion and other things. So yeah, just wanted to emphasize that There are different terms for study abroad, so that's something to consider, and reiterate and kind of amplify what Kalynn just said, which is around, connecting with your department, seeing what opportunities they already have. And if you're thinking about it, do it. Like, I thought about it and I didn't do it. And so, because I was nervous, I was scared I was going to be away from home. I was going to do all these things. My mom seeded some fear in me. I'll be very honest. She was like, that's going to be far. You're going to be far. So I know there's parents in the room. I'm saying this to you, encourage your children to take some risks. I know it's really hard to do, but highly recommend it, especially if it's going to bring them outside of their comfort zone, which is going to give them more experiences and help them to mature into the people that they will be. So that's a little note to the parents as a child of a mom who was very nervous. Find another outlet for your anxiety and encourage your children to take the risks and find ways to support them in doing that. Because if they want to do it and it can be made happen, I don't want them to be like Laina and I regretting it 10 years later.
I wanted to ask, what is the student life like at an HBCU than a non-HBCU school? They heard me.
I'll start. The experience is going to be different at each school because each school has something different that they have to offer. So to speak from Coppin State University, we are relatively small. So your experience at Coppin is going to be what you put into it. So if you stay in your dorm, you're going to solely get your dorm. If you go to events, you see what different clubs and orgs are having events. You sign up for emails, you pay attention to the Instagram pages, you'll have a great time. It is small, so again, everyone pretty much knows each other, so it's never going to be a dull moment. We do have dorms on campus, so you'll be able to stay on campus if you choose to do so. You'll be able to live in your suite with your suite mates, know your roommate, have a good time that way. We have clubs and orgs available for you, and also an opportunity for every student to create their own, as long as they have people who back them, like an e-board, so an executive board. We do have the Divine Nine on campus, so that's an option for those who are interested in Greek life. But the experience is really going to be what you put into it. If you literally stay in your dorm, that is all you're going to get. So I would say my best advice for anyone, like any incoming freshman going into an HBCU experience, would just be to not be shy. Don't be nervous. It's going to break you out of your shell eventually. Don't fight it. Just go to events, meet people, talk, and just have a good time.
I would add, one of the pluses to being at an HBCU is there's so many different type of people. So there's so many different types of activities and experiences you can have. Yes, if you want to join a sorority or a fraternity, Divine Nine, exists on most of our campuses. If you want to get into student government, if you want to go, if you want to start doing pageants and be on a homecoming court, if you want to be a part of all different types of clubs, if you're into sports and you want to do any types of sports, there's all of those activities. And then there is literally just the life of being on campus, especially as a freshman, being in the dorm. Like, we used to have a ball in the dorm, hanging out on campus, hanging out on the yard. For, like I said earlier, for us, it was the whole Atlanta University Center. So we had, if you wanted to stay close to home, you could be at Spelman. If you wanted to venture out and hang out with your brothers across the street, we would do Spelman and Morehouse stuff. If you wanted to venture out even more, then you had Clark Atlanta and Morris Brown around the corner. And at Spelman, or in the Atlanta University Center, we share a library, and the library is like centrally located. And then all of the schools kind of come together. And, sometimes we go inside the library to study. A lot of times we were also sitting outside the library, still studying each other, getting to know each other. You're making new friends. You're learning about all different people from all over the country, sometimes all over the world. And I have had an experience both at a predominantly white institution and at an HBCU. And the HBCU experience is unmatched. And so, like, whatever it is that you are into or that you want to might possibly get into, you have those opportunities, but it is a time, and it is a lot of and it's a lot of fun. The experience is a lot of fun. The social and the kind of student life is a lot of fun.
And people will change. Like, the part of what you do, like you may enter one way and the experience brings out different parts of you. So there is no one way that an HBCU student is. How they present, how they dress, what they're interested in, what type of music they listen to, how they do their hair. During the time I was there, everyone went in with the relaxer and everybody came out with an afro. So, like, that's, we all did the big chop. I did, and then I got locks. Like, there's no one way that an HBCU student looks. And I think that's the cool part, is like, you just end up connecting with people that you may not have otherwise connected with. Like, there was the International Club, and they had some great parties. Like, the music was bumping. And then the Caribbean Club, which I was kind of a part of, they also had some good parties and, like, community service opportunities too. And so, like, the fun thing is, we at HBCUs, I will say, we work really, really hard. We play also pretty hard. So, like, we want to have fun. We want to connect with each other. We want to support each other. There are, like, so many fashion shows. And there's another program called Alternative Spring Break, where you, instead of, like, taking a spring break and, like, not, maybe going home, or some people who can afford it going on vacation or whatever, there's an opportunity where you can go and volunteer for the week. And it's a big thing. It's quite an honor to be selected to be able to do Alternative Spring Break. I had people who, after different hurricanes and things like that, went down to where people were impacted and helped with cleanup efforts and things of that sort. When there are issues happening in the world, people will put on events and people will show up in support. So, it's not just about having fun, but it's also, how do we support ourselves in this community, but what is happening in the world? And I think your generation coming out are just so much more tapped in, good, bad, and different, into what is happening all around the world by nature of the internet, social media, TikTok, all the things, right? And so, y'all are going to make your HBCU experience what you make it. You're going to contribute to it too. So it may not be, it may be something different because you would have been there, is what I'm saying.
So there's a question here from a parent.
Yeah, my question is, I'm asking on behalf of one of the parents, and I'm a parent, and I think we share the same concerns. It's about the moral that is on campus, and you can see what is going on in our country and how the moral is encouraged in the HBCUs. And also, we see that sometimes when the kids go out away from home, they start developing other behaviors. So how can you, assure our parents that you would be taking care of our kids?
I'll speak first because I'm a parent that is almost preparing to send my daughter to college. And so when I think about, and she is very much interested, all the schools on her list are HBCUs. And when she's thinking about it, one of the things as a parent, you send your child down there at 17, 18 years old, and you raise them to have your family values, and you raise them to also, like, the hope is that you also raise them to come into who they are. No college HBCU or non-HBCU, can assure you that your child is going to return the exact same way that they left. And as a parent, I don't want my child to. Like, I want them to grow and to really get to know other people and learn who they want to be. I feel like I was given the blessing of spending 18 years, preparing her to go out into the world. And then I need her to take all those lessons I gave her and, figure out how to do that the way that she wants to live in the space. What your child will get at an HBCU is the attention to being themselves and the ability to be who they want to be, but also they will get challenged. And I think that is that is such a huge part of college, wanting to push our kids to question, to advocate, to challenge, to, really enter the world for themselves. And so one of the things as a parent you do have to think about is if that is something that is hard or concerning, start talking to your child now, and really just asking them what they're taking away from their 18 years of being raised by their amazing parents. But also really as parents, we also have to let our children, there's an aspect we have to let them go, and we have to believe in ourselves as parents that we did what we were supposed to do, and that we are sending young people out there to take that into consideration, but to go be the young people that they deserve to be. And this is their time to really come into themselves.
Okay, one more question. What were your stats into getting into your colleges?
All right. For Coppin, we are a test optional, essay optional school. We require a 2.5 minimum GPA for general admission. We've considered all students for a scholarship. They have a 2.75 GPA or higher. However, for students who have a 2.0 to a 2.4, we can admit them conditionally through our summer bridge program. I would say, as an admissions counselor, I'm looking heavily at the courses that you're taking. So I want to see if you're challenging yourself, if you're taking any honors, any IB, any AP courses. I'm not particularly going to look at your SAT scores unless you want me to, your ACT scores unless you want me to. Personally, for me, I'll prefer to look at your transcript and an essay. I like to get to know my students personally. To give you my specs, I went into Coppin with a 3.6 GPA. I do not remember my SAT scores. And I did submit an essay because they weren't optional back then. But that's that.
Yeah, next question.
I had to go look at my my documents. Look, I had to go check out what Howard is doing nowadays because it's changed. So just based on what I looked up, Howard does not require standardized tests for admissions. And from my experience, I think, Kalynn, I had a similar GPA as you, if not a little lower. And yes, so also on another note, getting in kind of to the finances part, I did my FAFSA and received kind of the typical federal student loans. I was very fortunate that I had some support from my parents as well. But what happened was when I got to Howard and I matriculated, I was actually able to get on scholarships after my freshman year. So after maintaining above a 3.0 GPA, there are different scholarship opportunities that exist that students sometimes they don't even have to apply for. Like the ones that I got, I didn't even have to apply for. The financial aid office kind of submits them through a system. And then I was kind of notified that I received a scholarship. And so from what I'm seeing is that they don't require SATs. They have an application deadline of February 15th. Howard University does. There is an application fee, and they do have some SAT score rate and ACT score ranges, but I would just encourage you all to look them up because I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah, I have my last question regarding the finances. The students that we have here are immigrants. They are new here, and most of our students come from the low income families. So how are the HBCUs are going to support financially to our students?
I can't speak for all because I think, it depends. I will say at Spelman, there are certain full scholarships. Bonner Scholarship is a huge one, which pays 4 years tuition and room and board, and it is a community service-based scholarship. So students that they're looking at the service that students have done in high school. And then there's presidential scholarships and all of those for really high achieving students. I will say in the past, Spelman was not always strong with giving financial aid. However, we just received $100 million. And I think it is 50% or 65% is going towards scholarships, starting with the high school class of 2025. So incoming freshmen will be able to tap into that $100 million or $50 million money that's now going towards scholarships. That has been something that as alumni, we have been we have not felt like Spelman has provided the scholarship opportunities and financial aid opportunities that it should have. But I feel like now I can speak about that in the past because now we have earmarked a substantial amount of money for incoming students starting with next year's incoming class. And going beyond that. So I would say those pieces internally, but I also not speaking as a Spelman woman right now, but just speaking as an educator, there is so much money out there that we don't tap into that's outside of our colleges. So looking into all different types of scholarships, especially scholarships for students who are first generation going to college, for students who have immigrated here or first generation in the country. There are very specific earmarked money for students that we do not tap into in the ways that other cultures do. So please make sure that you are looking for, not just the money that comes out of the school, but also external scholarships that you can be bringing into the school as well.
For Coppin in particular, we do offer all Maine residents in-state tuition, so that's a good token on that. We do also take financial aid and any outside scholarships, and we do consider students of a 2.75 or higher for merit-based scholarships. And that is a first come, first served basis, so it's recommended to apply earlier rather than later, because once the funds are gone for those merit scholarships, they are gone. But as far as our in-state incentive go, I will give you the specs for that. But for tuition and fees for the entire year, that's $7,000. Just for tuition and fees. But students can get that in-state incentive and staff that with scholarships and financial aid, so it's not limited.
And I know what the parent just named is that, being immigrants first generation in the country, I would ask for support in filling out and completing the federal, the FAFSA. I'm misremembering the full acronym. But it is an opportunity to put out there. Now I'll say this, it does ask you for some sensitive information about what you are earning, and some people don't always like to share that information. Sharing that information for this particular form helps the government understand what you as a parent may be able or unable to provide in support of the student's educational costs. And so if you fill out the FAFSA, well, the school, whichever school, HBCU or non-HBCU, will have a better picture of how they may need to support student in attending that school. So Grace, I don't know if Portland Public Schools has any support around helping parents complete and fill out the FAFSA, but that is how students get access to student loans and also to grants. And federal grants and student loans are the way that a lot of people afford college. It's not a bad thing.
Yes, we do. And actually, it's already on our calendar. It's scheduled for January, isn't it? Our FAFSA night is scheduled for January. So this has been really a very good evening. Thank you so much to our panelists, Laina, Chanel, Isaac, and Kalynn. Thank you so much, and we want to give them a round of applause again. Thank you so much for the parents who came and the students who are here. Good luck in your applications. We'll help you on that one. Thank you so much, guys.